Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Thursday, December the 3rd. I'm Gary Stevens. Open line tomorrow morning on Talk of the Town. We'll have Wellspring after the 11 o'clock news block. But on this first Thursday of the month, we spend some time talking about law enforcement with Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker. He's on the other end of our Zoom connection from the Sheriff's headquarters in Allegan. Frank, good morning and welcome back to WHTC.
Good morning, Gary. Thank you for having me.
Glad you are with us. And also in our Zoom connection is the Emergency Management Director for Allegan County, Holland City Councilman as well, but we'll focus on his emergency management duties. It is Scott Corbin. Scott, again, good morning and welcome back to WHTC.
Thank you, Gary, for having me. Appreciate it.
And Scott is joining the conversation in a few moments, and you can join the conversation as well at 395-1450, 395-1450. First of all, Sheriff Baker, real quick, we are getting ready for a winter driving season. The winter solstice is coming up at the bottom, later on this month, and certainly we all got to get ready for our winter driving tips. And fortunately, we got some time. We don't have to worry about snow right now at this particular stage. But if Tuesday morning was any indication, or Monday night, we might have some black ice situations needing to be aware of. We're just in that tweener situation right now, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously we've had years where we've had a little bit of that white stuff on the ground before this point, but one of the things we usually like to do this time of year is kind of put a few reminders out to people to make sure that winter driving is safer for them as well as safer for the other motorists. Few tips that we like to give every year because obviously we haven't had to put up with the slippery stuff, and now that it's probably going to be here soon, it's probably a good time to talk about it. But few tips that we like to have. Number one is never warm up your vehicle in an enclosed area such as a garage. A few mornings we've been getting up here, we've had frost and stuff, and don't warm up your car in the garage. We want to avoid a tragedy there. One of the things that we really start to talk about is slowing down the driving. Obviously, we're not going to be able to stop like we could on the dry pavement. So you want to accelerate and decelerate slowly. Apply the gas slowly to accelerate is the best method for regaining traction. It avoids skidding. Don't try moving in a hurry. Take your time. Slow down for a stoplight. Remember, it takes longer to slow down now on those icy roads. The normal dry pavement following distance is typically 3 to 4 seconds. We want to increase that to about 8 to 10 seconds. This increased margin of safety will provide longer distance needed when you do have to stop. The other thing is knowing how your brakes work. Whether you have anti-lock brakes or not, the best way is to stop is always threshold braking. Once those brakes are locked up, the wheels stop turning, you stop steering, and you just kind of have a tendency to go to whichever direction that inertia, that forward movement's taking you. So make sure that when you do have to do some heavy braking or hard braking, make sure you let the wheels still turn. Do that threshold braking. The other thing you want to do is if you can avoid stopping, flat out avoid it. There's a big difference in the amount of inertia it takes to start a car from a stop as opposed to while it's still just rolling a little bit. So if you see that stoplight up ahead and you can slow down a little bit rather than just pull up, stop, and wait for it to turn green, just slow down a little early. It never hurts to slow down a little early.
And not only that, but if you're going to start up from a stoplight in that situation, you really got to look ahead because there might be a vehicle needing to get through that intersection that can't slow down in time.
Very good tip, Gary. That's always what we want to make sure is you're always looking right and left because, while you might be listening to these tips that we're giving, maybe not everybody's listening and they may not be aware of or prepared for that icy, slippery condition, and they may slide right on through that intersection.
Especially if it's a big rig. You don't want to be in that particular type of situation. Some good winter tips there from Allegan County Sheriff Frank Baker. As both of you gentlemen heard the CBS News update before this particular segment, Dr. Anthony Fauci, a little bit hesitant about going wholehearted about this United Kingdom approval of the Pfizer vaccine for mass distribution, but it's just a matter of time before not only the U.S. Food and Drug Administration gives its approval for Pfizer, for Moderna, maybe also for Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca and others that are making that. But it's getting the vaccine to the people that really need it. And both of you are members of the Allegan County Coronavirus Vaccination Task Force. You have met about this particular situation. Tell us, either Frank or Scott, where are we standing now in Allegan County in getting the vaccines to the people that need it and probably need it first?
Yeah, I'll let Scott probably talk a little bit about more of the details. But like you mentioned, Gary, the sheriff's office is a member of this. I do have our undersheriff Mike Larson assigned to it specifically. But as you know, this is going to be a huge undertaking. This is monumental and something that I know in my career I've never had to participate in, something to this extent. And while obviously it's something new, it's something that we are planning for. It's something that we're putting plans in place. And we just want to assure the public that they know that it's something that we're looking at and that we can hopefully provide the best service to our community in the most efficient way possible and the safest way possible for not only those people that are going to be getting the vaccine, but also for the people that are going to be working and volunteering to make this all happen. And this task force includes a lot of members from public health, emergency management, law enforcement, EMS, fire service, private sector, a lot of people that are going to play a role in this. And Scott, is our emergency management director, is someone who's very much on the front lines. I spoke with our health officer, Angelique Joins, this morning, just to kind of bring her into this loop. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us, but Scott is here, and I'll let Scott talk a little bit about some of the things the task force has been doing to prepare for this day when this vaccine does arrive here in Allegan County.
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff Baker and Gary alike. Health Officer Angelique Joins had the foresight to think of developing this task force well in advance of many other communities, and we've been working on this for just about a month now. We have about 118,000 residents in Allegan County, and of that 118,000, just under 90,000 will be eligible for this vaccine. What I mean by that is there's not a juvenile vaccine at this time, so it's only going to be for those 18 or over. There is a three-phase approach. I think many of you already know that. It's nothing new. It's been mentioned in national news, local news. But the Operational Warp Speed has a three-phase approach. There's a 1A category, 1B category. Then it moves into phase 2 and 3. And so phase 1, we have just about 2,700 people that need to be in that phase 1A, which includes our EMS and medical staff through hospitals and that nature. But then when we get into phase 2, that's going to start in with our public safety agencies, police, fire, etc. But then we get into long-term care. We get into things like our educators and alike. And so that we're looking at 63,000 people. And so we know that phase 1A and B is going to begin and have some overlap, and it's going to take some time. So what we've done so far as a task force, we've been identifying human capital, because it takes a lot of people to do this. It doesn't take a few folks with a needle to vaccinate that many people. So our human capital is really important to include volunteers, and we need clinical volunteers and we need non-clinical volunteers. And we will be putting out later today a link on our social media site as well as our websites about how you can go about volunteering. But that's real important to get that human capital up and running. But then secondly is our facilities. We have a lot of pre-planned facilities throughout the county already for this type of event, for a pandemic event. And now we're just making sure we're cleaning up the details about how we're going to use those facilities, making sure all of our agreements with those owner operators of those facilities are aware of how we're going to come in and operate. And then last is just some resources, general resources we need to make those clinics operational. So we're working through those things. We got a lot of that work done and behind us, and we're very happy that we're there. It's just now going to be the coordination.
Coordination is one thing. Are we looking at a central location for the distribution, or all spaced out throughout the county?
So for our many of the 1A categories are going to be done in their facilities, such as hospitals and some nursing homes. 1A2 also will include EMS. So we're creating a separate secure place for them to get vaccinated alongside police, fire, EMS. We're going to make sure there's a secure location for that, just generally because there's just a lot that encompasses that. But then we move into various parts of the county, and we have 6 areas that have been selected, primarily in our school districts, in our school buildings, and where most people commonly know their school districts, and they know their buildings, they know where the parking is, and they know how the functions of the building work. So we're working with the school districts to do that, and we will announce those facilities as they come online. So as they come online, in the number of days and hours of operations, that will be released in communications out to the public about how to go about receiving their vaccines. And remember, this is a 2-dose vaccine. I mean, the booster that's required. So 28 days later, you're going to have to revisit a vaccine facility to get to the second round.
Let's get to the phones. 395-1450. Let's get to a line that has somebody actually on it. Good morning. You're on the line with Sheriff Frank Baker and Scott Corbin.
Yeah, hi. Talking about the vaccination, the upcoming COVID vaccination, and the amount of work. Something that I didn't. I mean, I kind of knew the time frame that they had as far as the staggering of the first and the second shot. But an example that I heard yesterday was that if you got the shot on January 1, I think this is the Pfizer one, and then you got the second shot 3 weeks later, you still wouldn't be protected until, I think, Valentine's Day, because it has a 2-week antibody, a 2-week time to build up antibodies after you get the second shot. So you tend to think that it's a one. We know it's not a one and done, but even a second one. So you have a really long time. So for most of the public to be able to get it, I think probably April might be better for most people who aren't healthcare workers or, super important to get it. We have there's going to be a long time before you're going to be fully protected. Isn't that correct?
Gentlemen, either one of you?
Yeah, I think you have to take that into consideration. Everybody's going to be slightly different, and the vaccines are all slightly different. There's a number of vaccines they'll be rolling out. So we have to understand that there are going to be some differences between how this takes on certain people. But you're correct. It's going to be a while before we know people are vaccinated, in a way that provides that level of protection that we need.
Cool. Thanks for your good work. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the call. 395-1450, 395-1450. Scott, the reason why I was asking about locations, and I'm going to talk off the top of my head on this. There are big locations that can handle a good amount of people at one time. I'm thinking of, one of them, of course, is the Gun Lake Casino area in Wayland, but that's, in Bradley, but that's a tribal area, so that might not be so much. But you have the Speedway, the drag strip in near Martin. You also have the Allegan County Fair Complex. That's a pretty big site as well. I'm just kind of wondering if that's going to be coming into play later on, not the initial, but maybe later on as the vaccines become available to more and more people.
Yeah, I really doubt that, in that we're probably going to need a clinical setting, probably indoors is probably the most likely scenario. And we're probably going to do it by pre-registration. And what we can do on the front end will help us vaccinate people more quickly, and our hourly vaccination rate will begin to rise. And as it begins to rise, we'll get more people through much quicker. So we'll probably do early registration. There'll be an online registration that you'll do prior to, and then you'll bring your identification. You'll be probably scheduled in 10 to 15 minute intervals. And the hope is to move people very quickly to an indoor setting. There will possibly be some drive-through vaccinations clinics, but remember, when you do that, you have to have an incredible amount of space to do that. I mean, a parking lot that's large enough, like you mentioned, the Speedway, but the distance too, because you got 15-foot car intervals. And then you have to worry about in the wintertime, our vaccinators out in the cold, out in the weather conditions. You have to worry about people rolling up sleeves and coats, taking coats off in vehicles. And that becomes very complex. So for Michigan, and especially here in this part of Michigan, we're probably, the drive-through clinics would, I'm not saying we won't have them, but more than likely won't. They'll probably be walk-in clinics of some sort.
And the reason why, another thing too is the fact that some of the lessons that will be learned with the first responders, the first people that get the vaccine, those lessons probably can be relayed as we get into the more massive situations in Allegan County. And of course, we're only talking Allegan County here. We're not talking Ottawa. We're not talking elsewhere in the state for those who might be listening away from here.
Yeah, I know the sheriff has got a staffing plan for that very purpose. Yeah.
Realistically, gentlemen, what are we looking at as to, is it going to be basically the first of the year before we start implementing some of the plans that you have made for the first responders, or could we see some first vaccinations before the end of the year? Is that a question that can be answered right now?
I think from my perspective and from what I know, we're prepared or preparing for that possibility, that distinct possibility that before the end of the year, this could be here in Allegan County for us to start giving to our first responders. From what we've heard, it's going to be soon. They're talking approval in days or weeks. So I guess there's a lot, some ambiguity there, but we're going to be doing all we can to be prepared just for that. But just a few takeaways I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of got from our conversation is that obviously this is in the planning stage. And with all plans, there are certain variables that can change. And some of the things that we're hoping to do and some of our goals are that we will be successful in recruiting the volunteers that are needed to do this. And when we have the human capital that Director Corbin spoke of, the formula for what our estimates are changes. So the better that we get a response from the community, the quicker that this is going to happen and the quicker that we're going to get through everybody and get everybody vaccinated. A few other things, much like the caller mentioned, there is some time that's going to take before we get to everybody. So we got to remember, we still have to stay vigilant. We still have to wear the masks. We still have to do what we can, social distancing, to get us through this hump and over this last hurdle before we can get to that safe point. Just a couple of things that I got from talking to our health officer that she asked that I bring up was that to help them right now during this contact tracing period, when they're somewhat overwhelmed, is if you can help do your part by, if you have either tested positive or been exposed, if you can go to their website, you can then complete the self-reporting form, either the quote, I have tested positive form or the I have been exposed form. You can then do that ahead of time, which would require you to fill out the form, saving the health department the time of contacting you. So don't wait for them. Just go out ahead and fill that form out. And if you do have any questions, they do have a hotline that is operational Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that number is 269-686-4546.
I'll repeat the number. Frank, can you repeat the number because people need to write it down?
Sure. It's 269-686-4546. But the big thing is obviously is the staff time it takes to do this contact tracing. So if you have been tested positive or if you have been exposed, please don't wait for the health department to contact you. Go to their website, complete the form, and you can take care of the things that they're going to need online. So it saves everybody that time.
With that, Sheriff Frank Baker, County Emergency Management Director Scott Corbin, I want to thank you both for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town to talk a little bit about implementing some coronavirus vaccine efforts in Allegan County. Gentlemen, we wish you nothing but the best, not only for the rest of the month, but also during the Christmas and New Year's season. And if all goes well, Sheriff Baker will talk again next month, and Scott will probably talk during the year as well with your other hat as the Holland City Councilman. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary, and to your audience. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Scott Corbin and Frank Baker of Allegan County.